In the last 2 weeks, I've seen so many ads for this screwdriver on TikTok that I just had to review it. As someone who builds PCs all the time, I feel like I have a really good grasp on what makes a good screwdriver and what doesn't. I will preface this review by saying I've been an avid user of both my Linus Tech Tip screwdriver and my iFixit screwdriver for years now. However, both of these are manual screwdrivers, and I've been curious about getting an electric screwdriver for some time now. But before I get to reviewing this new screwdriver, let's talk about the shortcomings of the current 2 screwdrivers that I use today. First, the iFixit driver. It has basically every bit known to man, and you can get even bigger kits than the one that I have. However, it really struggles when you need higher torque, like bolting a fan into your PC's chassis, because that handle is just so narrow. It makes it really hard to get lots of torque on it. The LTT screwdriver, on the other hand, has a nice thick handle and a really nice ratcheting system, which makes getting high torque super easy. But this thick handle is actually part of its downfall. When you're trying to work in tighter areas, this just really gets in the way. Also, with the bits being held back here, it can only hold 12 bits, which means if you need anything specialty, you're going to need a different screwdriver for that. Or you're going to need another container that holds all of your other bits that don't fit inside of the screwdriver. Which means whenever I need a specialty bit, I end up going to my iFixit screwdriver instead of my LTT screwdriver. So let's see how the Fanttik Nex E1 Pro compares to my tried and true drivers. Before we test it out, let's talk about the specs for this driver. First, it's capable of spinning at 200 RPM when it's not loaded. In low torque mode, it can deliver a maximum of 0.05 Newton meters, and in high torque mode, it can deliver up to 0.2 Newton meters of torque. To switch back and forth, all you have to do is twist this dial. There's L, locked, and high mode. According to the specs, if you lock the driver in manual mode, you can go all the way up to 0.3 Newton meters. The motor for this driver is powered by a lithium 350 milliamp hour battery, which takes between 1.5 and 3.5 hours to charge. So you're definitely going to want to make sure it's charged up before you use it. But have no fear, when the battery drops below 20%, there will be a flashing light right over here near the USB port, so you'll always know when you're getting low on battery. In order to use the driver, all you need to do is press the up or down arrow. The arrow closer to the bit holder is clockwise, and the arrow farther away from the bit holder is counterclockwise. In addition to that, when you start powering it on, there is an LED ring that activates to help you see what you're trying to fasten a little bit better. Included in the package that I bought, which was only $34 on Amazon, is this nice aluminum case and magnetic holder for all your bits. That holder clicks in so it doesn't fall out. You just push it in and it comes right back out. It also comes with 24 bits, each of which are labeled so you know exactly what you're using. And really the only downside to these bits are that they are a smaller form factor than you get in the Linus Tech Tip screwdriver, which means if you go to your hardware store to get a replacement, you're not going to be able to find one of these there. So you'll either have to buy those directly from Fanttik or find another online retailer that sells them. At this point, there's really not much left to do other than to use it. And what better way to do that than to build a PC, right? I have a nice little workstation PC that I need to build for a local business, so we're gonna use this new driver for every bolt on that PC, and we'll see just how well it does. All right, for the first use of our screwdriver, we're gonna take off this heatsink for our M.2 so we can install that SSD. We'll grab a medium-sized bit, and we'll give it a shot. Low torque wasn't enough to break that loose, so we'll go to high torque, I guess. Okay, that one worked at least. Get that one started. It feels like about the right torque that you would want on some of these smaller electric screws, although I am concerned about when we have to install a fan with this thing. One thing I am noticing is there's either no magnet at all or a very weak magnet, so none of your bolts are gonna stay connected to the end of your screwdriver. Although for $34 for an electric screwdriver, you know, maybe we can give them a pass on that one. I do feel like in order to tighten these down all the way, I am required to lock it in manual mode because even the high torque is just not enough. So these are spring-loaded bolts, so they're gonna be pretty high torque. We'll see if this can even get them all the way down. No. I'd say it got it about 80% of the way there, but look at that, there's still 2, 3, maybe 3 full turns to these screws. Oh, maybe just that one. This one only needed another quarter turn, but this one needed like at least a full turn. That was pretty tight, and I was actually able to break that torque. That's nice. This being a little bit low on torque, here's gonna be our first downside. Might be a little bit hard to see in here, but there is no but there are no pre-installed standoffs. Ideally, I would have a socket for this to be able to install the standoffs. However, this does not come with one. And since this didn't come with anything to actually tighten these sockets down, I'm actually able to completely build this PC with nothing but this driver. I'm going to have to get out my iFixit driver to be able to install these standoffs. This is the socket I would have liked to have seen. You can see how much I'm struggling trying to get some of these that are in the corners here. There just isn't a wide enough grip in order to get good torque to get those standoffs all the way tightened down. Okay, make sure we weren't blocking anything there. Okay, hopefully we won't need our iFixit screwdriver again. And let's hold this motherboard down with some bolts. All right, now let's do it. That's why you want a magnet on the end of your screwdriver. I will say it wasn't apparent when I had a reasonable size screw, but when I have these little tiny bolts, it does actually appear there is a weak magnet on this. You just have to be a lot more careful than I do with my other screwdrivers. Again, on some of these bolts, I'm finding that it has enough torque to tighten some of them down all the way, but others it doesn't, even in high torque mode. So that is something to be aware of, that you're likely going to have to switch into manual mode a lot in order to make sure that all of your bolts are tightened down fully. The last bolt that I really wanted to test is putting in a fan to see if it can even get a fan bolt started, because these fan bolts are actually self-cutting threads, so there's actually no threads in the fans beforehand, so it takes a lot of torque. We'll test it on this side panel, which can actually fit a full 120 millimeter fan. Line up these holes. This one, looks like this fan actually already has some holes pre-done into it, so if we can't do this, it definitely can't do a brand new fan. That went basically nowhere. But if you're hoping this was gonna save your wrists while bolting in fans, it's not going to. I know I said I was gonna try and not do this, but I'm busting out my Linus Tech Tips one. See how easy that is? Now it does get tiring if you have 10 fans to put into a case, but at least this actually works. And because it's designed to be manual, it's got that nice ratcheting system, unlike the Fanttik. All right, I'm gonna finish putting this together and then I'll give you my final thoughts on this Fanttik screwdriver. There it is, all finished. So conclusion time for this TikTok phenomenon. I think the most generous I can be is to give it a 5 out of 10. The torque on it is way too low. For anything related to PC building, using the low torque setting is pretty much useless. You're only ever gonna use high or the locked position to actually get some real torque on stuff. And for pretty much anything other than really low torque stuff like the N.2 fan sink cover, we're going to have to do some manual torquing rather than just using the electric torque. Secondly, the magnet on it is way too weak in comparison to something like the LTT screwdriver, which very easily holds up screws like that even when I shake it around. Standard screwdriver bit, which you would be using a lot in most applications, doesn't even pick it up. My next issue with it is these two buttons. While I kind of get it, having nice low profile buttons means you can fit into more spaces, but it makes it a lot harder to use. If you have it at an angle where you can't see it, you have to really sit there and feel around to make sure you're actually pushing the button and that you're pushing it on the right side. Having two nice little round tactile buttons that are super obvious would be much better in my opinion. All in all, I give it around a 5 out of 10, and I'm only rating it that high because this kit is only $34. So if you're building some stuff that requires super low torque, this might be good for you. If you're a PC builder like me, or you're building other electronics, don't believe everything you see on the TikTok shop. Get yourself something like the Linus Tech Tips screwdriver, or the iFixit driver, or maybe a higher end electric driver if you're looking for something like that. Hopefully this helps you all out, keeps you from wasting more money on your TikTok shop, or it stops you from having to do another Amazon return like I'm probably about to do. See you in the next one. So let's see how this Fanttik Next E1 Pro. So let's see how this, it's just a bunch of random words and sounds. Ugh. So let's see how this Fanttik Next E1 Pro. Also with the bits being here in this, also with the bits being here. Shit. I feel like I have a really good handle on what makes a good Why can't I say screwdriver?